Hello everybody, today I would like to talk about a book called Bronze Age Mindset, written by a guy who goes by the name of Bronze Age Pervert. He's famous on Twitter, I'm sure all of you have heard of him. Apparently his real name is Costin Vlad Alamario, and he is a Romanian man who was educated in America. He's about 44 years old, he lives in Romania now. But this is not confirmed. I don't think he himself has confirmed it. I may be wrong about that, but that's according to the Wikipedia article. I'm not a very close follower of Bronze Age Pervert. I do follow him on Twitter. I do follow his, what should we call him? Companion, fellow traveller of the path, friend perhaps. Raw egg nationalist. I don't actually see them retweeting each other. I don't know. Do they talk to each other? I don't know, but they seem to be part of the same kind of space of bodybuilder Nietzscheans who want to rebel against the modern world. So I do follow him on Twitter, but I don't know if the docs is being confirmed. But anyway, I mean, I assume that it's true. He does a podcast called Caribbean Rhythms with Bronze Age Pervert. And he's also written another book which has come out last year called Writing, Selective Breeding and the Birth of Philosophy, which I have not read. People say that he is associated with the Dark Enlightenment. Dark Enlightenment, I never liked the idea of this. Dark Enlightenment is, of course, it's the Enlightenment, but it's dark. So it's edgy and cool. I guess it has the enlightenment. I mean, I don't know. So many of these political movements are just not very accurately defined, so it's very difficult to understand what they're all about. There's just kind of labels floating in the air, kind of like this woke right thing, which people seem to be talking about a lot now on Twitter. What is the woke right? What does it mean? Who knows? Will this slogan stick around? Probably not. Dark Enlightenment, what is it? I'm assuming it means the Enlightenment, but with, well, it's an anti-democratic enlightenment. So it's an anti-egalitarian enlightenment. So I'm assuming it means they want the Enlightenment principles of rationality and freedom of speech, but without the democracy. Not exactly sure how that's supposed to work, but it's associated with Curtis Yarvin, who's a Jew who used to go by the name of Mencius Moldbug, as far as I understand it. Never read his book, never talked about it. It never appealed to me, because it seems to me that they just want to create a technocracy, which is what the New World Order wants to create, is what the World Economic Forum wants to create. Essentially, the idea being, let's just put Elon Musk in charge of everything, right? And we'll... You know, nothing could go wrong with that. We'll just have Elon Musk and AI and robots managing everything, and it's going to be fine, guys, you peasants. Democracy hasn't worked. Democracy is a failed project. It doesn't work. We need to let the elites take control. So I don't believe in any of this. It's rather silly. But people these days are frustrated, right? People are frustrated. They see the mass immigration. They see the transsexuality. They see the stupidity of the masses. They see woke culture. And they think, well, people are stupid and democracy has ruined everything. I think there's some truth in this, but not the whole truth. If you open your borders and you fill your country with foreigners, then yeah, it's going to make a big problem for you. It's going to make a big problem for your democracy, because those foreigners are just going to vote for more foreigners to come in and more welfare state. If you give women the vote, then that's going to create a big problem for you, because women are emotional and they're soft and they're not capable of violence. The average man has twice the upper body strength of a woman. The average man could beat the average woman to death with his bare hands if he wanted to. So women, their brains are not designed to think in confrontational and violent terms. Their brains are designed to think in agreeable, non-confrontational terms. They want to find agreements. See a group of girls talking to each other. They want to smile, laugh. Oh, you look so nice today. Oh, I like your hair. Oh, you're so pretty. Oh, blip, 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 blip. Right? This is what they do. They are falling over themselves to agree with each other. And so what happens is when you introduce these people into the political system, they will create a blob where they all commit themselves to the current zeitgeist, and they won't think it through. They won't think rationally. Like, should women be going into men's toilets? Should men be going into women's toilets? They won't think about it rationally. They'll just see, oh, this is on the TV, and this is what I'm supposed to think, and so I'll just think it. And if people disagree with it, they're just causing a disturbance. This is the way women think. They think in these terms, and they dislike male aggressiveness because they see it as a threat, and so they'll push male aggressiveness out of the system. And so after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 decades of 7, 8, 9, 10 decades of women voting, you will simply have a very, very feminized, castrated political class, and the men will no longer be men. The men will just be like these blobby creatures that we have ruling over us today. And so then what happens is, when your country is invaded by refugees and they're raping women and they're committing crime all over the place, the elites that run the country will just say, well, what can we do? What can we do about it? I just don't know, right? Whereas the obvious solution is just to shoot them. Okay? They're coming over on a boat over the English Channel. Well, send in the British Navy and shoot them, and then they won't come anymore. Like, that's the easy solution to the problem. But women don't think in that way, and because they're in the political environment, they've castrated the men, and so your country will end up just being invaded by foreigners, and everything will be destroyed. So that is the problem with democracy, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. I have no problem with universal male suffrage. That works, as far as I can see it. It is a system which can generate great wealth and prosperity. It worked in America, worked here. I mean, it came to us later here, but nonetheless, it worked for some time. And obviously, men are capable of defending the border, and they wouldn't allow that kind of mass immigration. So I think that is the problem with the democratic system, not democracy itself. So I am in disagreement with the Dark Enlightenment, and in disagreement with Bronze Age pervert, over this. It brings me back again and again to what Tucker Carlson said in some speech that he did some time ago. If you look at America, you look at car crash statistics. Usually, when a car crashes, it's hitting something on the other side of the road, or off the road on the other side of the road. And what that means is the car's moving along, it swerves to avoid something, and then it overcompensates and it goes too far and it hits a tree or something like this. In a similar way, the Enlightenment project is in trouble because we've allowed women to vote, and people want to overcompensate by tearing down the Enlightenment project and just going back to a totalitarian tyranny. But it's a mistake. It's an overcompensation. You're not properly analysing what is the real actual problem here. I personally just feel it's the female vote. But anyhow, this is the Dark Enlightenment. It's associated with Curtis Yarvin, Peter Thiel, the famous homosexual who invested in Facebook all those years ago. He's like a billionaire. He's worth like 10 billion. He's a little bit right-wing. What is the meaning of this? What is a right-wing homosexual? I have no idea. But nonetheless, this is what Bronze Age pervert is associated with. Whether this is a true association or not, I don't know. But nonetheless, but all that being said, Bronze Age Mindset, I think, is a brilliant book. Let me just put that out there. What do I think of this book? Having given you the background, I think it's a brilliant book. And I think it avoids... I think he's managed to choose a very, very fine path between, on the one hand, acknowledging that you need to have an elite. You need to have, what can I say, a warrior class of men, an aristocracy of men, men who rise above it, men who, he calls them pirates, men who are inspired by a spirit of adventure. This is a book which is designed to inspire men to go out into the world and to explore and to conquer and to meet beautiful women and to gather riches and to dedicate your life to combat and glory above wealth and above any kind of conservative ideal. His conservative ideal is glory. It's not prudish sexuality. This is why I imagine he's called the Bronze Age pervert. He embraces the perversion. He embraces the debauchery. And in actual fact, right at the end of the book, the conclusion of the book is very kind of strange, because he spends a few pages talking about how some people will need to go down into the darkness, right, and mingle with the thugs and the criminals and the mafia and so on and so forth, in order to find the solutions to our problems. Like, what he means by that, I'm not quite sure, but nonetheless, it is a book which glorifies the male spirit, and it acknowledges that the vast majority of people are not like this. The vast majority of men are feminized, and they are sheep, and they are weak. He acknowledges all of this, but despite the fact that he acknowledges all of this, he doesn't fall into the trap of being this kind of unhappy doomer like Julius Evola in his, what is that book called? Revolt Against the Modern World. Or he does not speak of riding the tiger. He does not speak of survivalism and hiding in the mountains and waiting for it all to collapse. He doesn't speak of any of this. He glorifies Trump. He loves Trump, and he embraces populism. And he sees Trump as being just a wild man who, with pure force of will and charisma, is able to get the masses to follow him. So he is an elitist. He is anti-egalitarian. He is anti-democracy, really, at heart. But nonetheless, he says, well, we're stuck with this system and we need to make the best of it. And we need to practice entryism into the Republican Party. And we need to move the masses in the direction that we want to move them, without being too spurgy, without being too, talking about crazy ideas, without rambling on about Adolf Hitler and blah, 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 without talking about ethno-nationalism. No, we must move into the spirit of the people. We must move into the MAGA movement and save the country and celebrate it. Do it in a joyful way, without the mood and the gloom and all of this. So this, my dear friends, is beautiful. This is perfecto. Okay? I am so very happy that I've read this book. I wish I'd read this book 2, 3, 4, 5 years earlier. I really do. He has nailed it. I think this is a work of genius. I really do, and I don't say that lightly. But I do believe this is a book that will be remembered in 10, 20, 30, 40 years' time. If not only for the fact that it has managed to fill a void. Because we all know there's been so much political turmoil over the last few years. The rise of the alt-right, the great meme war of 2016, 4chan, Pepe the Frog, the e-celebs, the podcasts, so much talk, so much noise, so many videos, so many blogs, and yet nobody writes books, okay? Who writes books? Who, my dear friends? Who writes the books? Nobody writes the books. Did Richard Spencer write a book? No. Millennial Woes? No. Morgoth? No. Sargon of Akkad? No. Andrew Anglin? No. Nick Fuentes? No. Excuse me. The list could go on and on and on and on and on, right? These are just some of the e-celebs that I know of. I don't follow all of them. I don't know what the names are, but we all see these people. They're on YouTube. They're doing their podcasts. They're on Twitter. They've got their followers. Do they actually sit down and write? Do they even bother reading, half of them, to be honest with you? But do they write? No. So there's a void. And this is something I've been complaining about for quite some time, actually. I made a video about this like 4 or 5 years ago. I remember doing it. Where are the books? What kind of a gay retarded intellectual movement is this thing? The alt-right, which then decided to rebrand itself as the dissident right, but it's still essentially the same thing. At least the men of the manosphere sit down and write books because they're men of ambition and they want to they're celebrating the masculine spirit, and so they think, yeah, I'll write a book and I'll make some money out of it, and they're more entrepreneurial in that sense. The alt-right has just become an intellectual disaster. They've got all the best ideas and none of the best books because they don't write them. So here we have Bronze Age mindset. In 10, 20, 30, 40 years' time, what are people going to read when they're trying to understand what happened between 2016 and 2024? What are they going to read? They're going to read this book. Right? They're going to read this book. That's it. It reminds me of what Woody Allen said. Like, in order to succeed, you just have to turn up, right? So for that alone, it's a work of genius. Because he actually just, unlike all the other retardedly stupid leaders that we have, he actually managed to sit down and create something. So God bless him for doing that. But also he captures the spirit of the age. It is a humorous book. And we all know that the whole 2016 meme war was about the lols. It was about 4chan. It was about Pepe. It was about just making fun of the satanic death cult that rules over us, just for the sake of making fun of it, right? For the memes, okay, just to make your friends laugh. It's actually, this is one of the points he comes back to again and again in this book, is that you need friendship. You need camaraderie. Male friendship is what will save us. And in a way, on an online internet way, this is what this entire movement's been about. It's about being, friends on Twitter, friends on 4chan, anons, chatting to each other about forbidden subject matters that you're not allowed to talk about, and breaking the rules and being a little bit edgy and a little bit cool and a little bit anti-authoritarian, and making fun of the prudishness and the stiffness of the left wing. The 2016 meme revolution was a boyish revolution. It was a youthful revolution. It was a mocking revolution against the forces that be. And so this book characterizes all of that. It is a serious book. The ideas that are presented in here are serious. These are Nietzschean ideas. There are many different references to various different Hellenistic heroes. So it's a book which is steeped in classical ideas. It's connected to the past, but nonetheless it's all presented in a funny way, which is the spirit of the age that we are in. So it's a work of genius because it's one of the few books written. It's a work of genius because it's humorous in its tone. It's written by an anon, or was an anon. It's also a work of genius because it manages to drag this Evolian navel-gazing elitism out of the gutter and connect it to populism. Because one of my utter hatreds, one of the reasons I'm so frustrated and disappointed with the dissident right, is because of their defeatism. Right? Nini Parvini being the number one personification of this, the Iranian philosopher that for some reason has become the leader of the British dissident right. Everybody bows down to him. Oh, he's so clever. He's even managed to outshine Morgoth. Oh, Nimi, oh, you're so clever. And what did Nimi Parvini say? What book did he write? The Populist Delusion. He just spat in the face of the MAGA movement. Spat in the face of Forger. Spat in the face of everything we've been trying to achieve on the internet. Because this has been a grassroots movement. This has been lots and lots and lots of small accounts on Twitter and in other places pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing these ideas. Pushing the idea of white genocide, essentially. Nobody uses that term anymore for some reason. It's gone out of fashion. When I first got involved with this in 2016, that was the meme. Everybody was very much together. The idea was the alt-right was all about white genocide, and essentially what is happening to us in European nations is what has happened to the Tibetans in Tibet. Chinese conquered Tibet, and they've moved hundreds of thousands of Chinese people into Tibet, a different race of people. They all look the same to me, but to them there's a big difference, right? Thus making it impossible for the Tibetans to maintain their ethnicity during the course of the next 100 or so years because of miscegenation and so on and so forth. The Tibetans will disappear. They will be blended in to the Chinese. It's a deliberate act of genocide. So this is the model of genocide that's recognized by the United Nations, and this is what is happening to us. And this was the meme that was pushed forward in 2016. That's gone out of fashion. But anyway, never mind, whatever. The point being, this has always been a grassroots movement. It's always been about the anons, the people, the memes, right? In fact, that they were more stringent on this in the beginning. Like, I remember I used to have my videos published on the Daily Storm. I made a video once talking about, I just flipped the idea. Many other people have made this point since, so I don't claim to be the origin of this idea, but nonetheless, at that point in time, I'd never seen anybody present this idea. So I made a video about it, and the idea was just that, if we reversed immigration and if we banned male immigration and just only imported Filipino girls or whatever, or Thai, young 18-year-old Filipino girls or Thai girls or whatever, then immediately all of the women of the nation would just be very, very anti-immigration, right? Because there is a sexual component to immigration. It's women. They want men. They want the competition. They want to stir up trouble. Probably not with the young women, but certainly with the older women, the middle-aged women. And we've all seen the stories of left-wing, middle-aged, fat, frumpy women having sex with refugees. Andrew Anglin did a great job of covering this on the Daily Storm. Many, many examples of this. Many examples of this. So there's definitely a sexual component to it. So I made a video about this. It got posted. I posted it, and I think Anglin posted it on the Daily Storm. I don't know. And then he talked about it. And then I said in the chat, I'm glad to see someone's listening to my ideas. And he got really upset. He was like, oh, it's not your ideas. It's the Anons. Nobody invents the ideas. The 4chan invents the ideas. Okay, you can't claim your own philosophy. I was like, okay. Bit strange. I think that mood has passed away now. It was certainly there in Gamergate. If you read Vox Day's, what was it called? SJJs Never Lie. Social Justice Warriors Never Lie. Or Always Lie, or something. Yeah. Well, he talks about Gamergate in that book, and he mentions how it is an anon movement and nobody's in charge. It's a leaderless revolution, and that's why you can't shut it down. There was this vibe in the beginning in 2016. It's gone now. It's an e-celeb movement now. But nonetheless, this has always been a populist movement, and yet there sits Nima Parvini. Populism doesn't work. Oh, it's the elites. So this is one direction that you can take this Evolian philosophy. Okay, everybody worships Julius Evola. Oh, Evola, we love you. To be honest, I'm not even against Julius Evola. I think he's okay. I think he had some good ideas. What I hate is the idea of riding the tiger, the idea of just waiting in a depressed way and allowing all to collapse. This is what I hate about Evola, because this is what all the losers have picked up on. They don't want to fight. They don't want to win. They just want to huddle together, watch Millennial in the darkness, and just, oh God, it'll all collapse soon, and then we'll win, right? And Nima Parvini fed into this. Oh, the populism, it's a delusion. Don't bother fighting. The elites will decide to change things, right? And now he's pushing this idea of they're going to put away the woke. Why are they putting away the woke? They're putting away the woke because of populism, because there's been so much of a pushback. And yet he rejects this. But Bronze Age Pervert, he takes the Evolian philosophy in a different direction, and he says, no, you have to be like a fox. You have to have charm. You have to have charisma. There is something Evolian in being the great man who can lead the masses, drag them up with charisma alone. He loves Trump, despite all of his faults and flaws and whatever. I mean, there's part of the genius is that the fact that he calls himself a pervert. He's not hung up on puritanical sexuality like so much of the dissident right. He's not a Puritan. He revels in the masculine spirit, not the good virgin boy who got married at 21 to his virgin wife. This is not what this book is about. This is a book about big dick Vikings conquering and pillaging and raping and doing whatever the hell they want, like wild savages. It's a book for barbarians. So perhaps because of this, because he's not broken by this by sexual morality, but perhaps because of this, he's able to celebrate Trump and populism and politics and the dirtiness and the lying and the Machiavellian nature of politics. Perhaps that's why. But whatever the reasons why, he has taken the philosophy in the correct direction. So God bless you, Bronze Age Pervert, for doing this. I wish I'd gotten on this train a lot earlier. I really do. And it's interesting to see the people like that gay Mexican Nick Fuentes just throwing scorn at him. I do not know what this is all about. I'm very confused. I can't follow all the gossip. Who knows? Fuentes, a doomer. Apparently he's had disagreements with Richard Spencer. Spencer is a fool. Spencer never wrote a book. Spencer's been telling people to vote for Kamala Harris. He's a Democrat. And then on the other hand, we have Raw Egg Nationalist, who's in a disagreement with Keith Woods, the Irishman. And I'm not even sure what the hell that is about. So there does seem to be some pushback by the Doomers. A dismissal. Oh, you're just Jewish and you're a pervert, right? Now, to be fair, it is quite possible that the Bronze Age Pervert is a Jew and a pervert, right? I mean, it's in the title itself. He certainly appears to be Jewish, or he has a Jewish father. And he certainly does appear to be promoting an ideology of wandering, okay? Because if you read, he's glorifying Hellenistic culture, and there's the city-state culture of that age, before the Roman Empire, when you had Athens on one hand, you had the Spartans, and you had people getting on boats and going here and going there and waging war against each other and so on and so forth. He glorifies this beautiful culture, and he's right to do so because it is wonderful. It was a heroic culture. So he's glorifying the exploits of the adventurer. I don't think it's really just Jewish mercantile going here, going there for making money. No, he's He's glorifying the wandering warrior, not the wandering Jew. But nonetheless, the inspiration to travel is there, right? Which is good, by the way. I think it's healthy for nationalists to travel. In fact, I think I'm biased in this opinion, but I think the best nationalists are those that have actually left the country. I became a racist because I left the country, unlike a lot of narrow-minded kind of, not very intelligent people who have just never left England. I just don't like foreigners because I don't like the way they look or whatever. In my mind, there are two types of nationalists. There are those who are just born xenophobic because of low IQ, essentially. Because if you're not very clever, then alien things will look like a threat to you. Because I think curiosity and intelligence are connected. If you are an intelligent person, you will be curious. If you are curious, you will want to know about the Chinese and the Indians and the Muslims and the Brazilians and what's going on out there in the world. I have to. And if you have that within yourself, you'll want to travel, and you will want to go and see. So I think the desire to travel and the desire to understand foreign cultures is a mark of intelligence. So, and I think there is some truth in the idea that the left wing presents, that xenophobic British nationalists are just a little bit dumb, and maybe not very friendly and not very nice. I mean, certainly I've met many of these people, these types of people in the movement. And certainly, before I was ever involved in politics, you meet these people in school, right? There's always the kids that sat at the back of class and they were just joking and they weren't serious and they weren't really very nice people. And they would be the ones that like to make jokes about NIGG or COON or, this kind of things. And they like to do it very much from a kind of like bullying perspective, as in picking on the minority. In fact, I have a friend like this. I haven't spoken to in years, but he always liked to pick on black people. And I just thought he was a bit silly for doing it and not very nice. And then I woke up to the race realism question. And then I started talking to him about immigration and oh my God, what's happening? And he wasn't interested in it from a political perspective at all. He was a racist, but only because he liked to pick on people. Only because he was a bully. That was the origin of his racism. So there is a truth in this. But then there's the other type of nationalist, like myself. Of course, I'm biased in all of this. But there is another type of nationalist who will go out into the world and see the world, live in other countries, mix with other races and people, read other ideas, and then realize, oh, actually, do you know what? I like being English and I like my country and I don't want all these foreigners in my country because they are not like us. You see, this is where my nationalism comes from. This is where Andrew Anglin's nationalism comes from. He spent some time living with natives in some jungle somewhere, and he thought they were noble savages, but after living with them for 6 months, he realized they're just stupid, right? So I think there are two. I think there's the high IQ racist and the low IQ racist. They're not necessarily the same thing. We have to work together, of course. I don't want to pick on the good men of England that have always been against immigration. I don't want to insult them or offend them. I'm just pointing out that there's a difference. And we've all seen the meme, right? We've all seen the bell curve, right? The low IQ the wisdom of the low IQ, the wisdom of the high IQ, and all the propaganda is aimed at the midwit in the middle, who thinks he's clever. He's dangerous because he thinks he's clever. So Bronze Age Pervert in this book, it is an inspiration to travel and to conquer and to do all these things. Well, that's the vibe I get out of it. But is that vibe degenerate? No, I don't think so. I think it's very good. I think it's very healthy. I think it's very English. I think men should travel and go out and have adventures. And I think it's a great shame that the dissident right is kind of anti-travel. I mean, you never get that vibe. You never hear people on Twitter saying, "Oh, I'm going to go here. I'm going to." Well, I guess you got Drunkly. What's that guy called? Drunkly Cuckbar or what? Totally butchered that guy's name. Drunkly Cuckbar. That's not his name, but you know the guy on Twitter. You know he's traveling around Africa. So I guess there is a little bit of a spirit of travel. They're always the best ones, but there should be more of this. And it's good for men to have this instinct. So is Bronze Age perverts a pervert for telling men to travel? No, I don't think so at all. Is he a homosexual? Well, I hope not. I really do. And I don't want to copy other people's slander by saying that he is. But nonetheless, it is a subject matter that must be discussed because the accusation is there. In the book, he makes fun out of gays. He does speak about the homosexual question. To be honest with you, I couldn't quite understand. He takes an anti-gay perspective. The book is anti-gay. Let's just put that out there. This is not a pro-gay book. It is a pro-debauchery book. And he does talk about Caligula and other such characters. I haven't memorized. I didn't recognize all the names of the people that he was talking about. But he glorifies them in a way for their savageness, their bestiality, their willingness to just break all the rules and do whatever they want. So there is a certain kind of almost satanistic might is right attitude in this book, which could be interpreted as a glorification of homosexuality. But on the whole, really, it's just a glorification of masculinity. And he makes fun of facts. He makes fun of weakness. He doesn't like weak, effeminate men. So I would say it's an anti-gay book. He does give an explanation of why he thinks men become homosexuals. I'm not exactly sure what he was trying to say, and I don't exactly remember it. Probably because I'm not really interested in that subject matter very much, but something to do with being raised by women and being coddled by women, and then putting women on a pedestal and sort of glorifying them as sort of heavenly creatures or something, and because of this turning your sexual interest to men. I don't really understand this idea. I don't really agree with it. It sounds a bit strange, but he does talk. He presents an idea as to why men become homosexual, but that doesn't mean he himself is gay. Okay, it is an anti-female book. I 50% agree with him on this. As I said at the beginning, women have a feminizing effect on men. Women do seek to drag men down in many ways, and make them avoid combat. This is essentially, at the heart of this book, he is glorifying combat, martial combat, and risk-taking, and danger. He talks about ancient Greek poets who, on their gravestones, they did not describe themselves as poets. They described themselves as warriors. He's a warrior first. And the poetry is just something that is secondary and not so much importance. So it is a book for warriors. It is a book for men who want to go out and die on the battlefield. And women, generally speaking, they don't want their men to go out and die on the battlefield. They will discourage their men from going into war. So it's kind of anti-female in a way, but not in a nasty way. He's not. There's none of this criticism of women, like calling them bitches and whores and sluts, and he's not complaining about their sexuality, their ability to cheat. He's not bothered by that at all. In fact, he points out that women, it's just in their nature to lust after the warrior. It's in their nature to not want to settle with the beta male. They want to have a strong man who leads, and they want to follow that. They don't want a man who sees them as being their best friend and who wants to share all their emotions with them and this and that. They don't want that kind of man. They want And I agree with that. I mean, Jordan Peterson talked about this. I don't know why I'm quoting Jordan Peterson so much, but nonetheless, I agree. I saw him do a video where he described the real inner desire of a woman is to tame the beast. Okay, Beauty and the Beast. This is what it's all about. This is what a woman wants. She wants to have an uncontrolled force of nature for a boyfriend, and then she wants to calm him and make him serve her, essentially. And she wants to be able to do this with her beauty. She wants to seduce the man, essentially. She wants to chase the man and entrap him, I suppose, domesticate him, turn him into a pet. She wants to turn the wolf into a pet. This is the deepest desire of a woman, and I agree, it makes sense. They want to, all the pickup artists, they all say the same thing. Give the woman the opportunity to seduce you. Don't take that from her. So I agree with this. I don't think it's a misogynistic book, though. Obviously, if a feminist read it, they would think it's horrible. But it doesn't come across in that way, not to me. It simply comes across as a very masculine book. So, is he some gay that just hates women? No, he's just pointing out that female nature is to feminize men and to turn men into sheep and to domesticate them and to make them weak and to. He talks about how the Chinese stepmother will have her foot on the neck of the stepson. You know, the old cultures of the world were very much matriarchies, led by bullying, shouty women. And he says that these are not very nice places to live. And he is, in many respects, kind of anti-city, anti-urban culture. He sees the cities as being giant congregations of brown sludge and sewage and laziness and grey smoke and desolation and misery and soul-crushing, inane work. He would rather have men running through the mountains chasing bears with axes. So he views the cities as being, and civilization itself as being sort of a very feminine female creation. So there is a sex war. But I don't think he's really wrong in that regard. He does. I don't know. It's never going to be possible for me to. This is why somebody should be innocent until proven guilty. How can I prove that he's not guilty of being gay? Right? You have. I think people just want to call him gay because he's a little bit wild. But the accusation stands. I mean, the accusation has also been made out of at Raw Egg Nationalist. He's been doxxed, as I'm sure you are aware. Handsome guy, in his 40s, nice physique, intelligent, well-spoken. Where's his wife? Where's his girlfriend? Where's his children? Where is this guy's wife and children? Why don't they have wives? Why don't they have children? They're not losers. What's going on there? The question stands, doesn't it? But nonetheless, innocent till proven guilty. I don't want to dwell on the point. But it should be mentioned. And there is, of course, the bodybuilding element. There's always been a vein of homosexuality in bodybuilding because of the glorification of the masculine physique. And what do I think about bodybuilding? I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's better to be a bodybuilder than to be a fat slob. That's for sure. Is it the one true masculinity? Do you have to have a six-pack to be considered to be a man? No, I don't think so at all. Like I think a rugby player is probably the ultimate physique, isn't it? I mean, they can run and they've got muscle. So they've got the cardiovascular and they're muscly and they know how to fight and they've got the companionship that comes from being part of a team and they've got the spirit of competition. I mean, they're tough guys. You want to mess with the rugby team? Nobody wants to pick a fight with a rugby player, do they? Or a scaffolder, or a bouncer, right? Now, do all these guys have six packs? No. Are they really strong? Yeah. So I don't think you necessarily have to have this carved physique in order to be physically powerful and dangerous. Tony Soprano was a fat guy. Would you want to fight him? Probably not. So it's not entirely necessary, and there definitely is an element of narcissism in it, which is feminine. Like, look at me, look at my body, look at my abs, look at my muscles. It's like, well, why? You're a bloke. You're not really supposed to be too concerned about looking in the mirror and taking photographs of yourself. However, all that being said, it's not the worst thing in the world, is it, to have a really good physique? And if I were to admit it, most men actually do crave to have the body of a bodybuilder. They're just perhaps not really interested in it, don't want to put the effort in to get it. And also, it is something which will attract the ladies. And we do live in the age of Instagram, and we do live in the age of Tinder, and girls will look at you and they do want the top 20%, and they'll think, oh, that guy's got a six-pack, I like him, maybe I'll go on a date with him. So it is an easy way to get yourself a girlfriend, basically. And essentially it is something that comes down to you. It comes down to you. It's simply the application of willpower. There's no chance in it. It's not like trying to get a job but you don't get the job, or you're trying to start a business but it doesn't work out. These things are dependent on other people. When it comes to bodybuilding, if you have the right diet and you go to the gym on a regular basis, you will get the physique of a bodybuilder, and you'll get that six-pack and you'll look good, and that's it. So it is will to power. It is, again, he's taking this Nietzschean philosophy, right? Actually, I think the whole Nietzschean thing starts with Thomas Carlyle. I'm just going to put that out there. We invented everything. Well, he's Scottish, actually. Really, it probably starts with Napoleon. I mean, let's be honest here. He was the origin, wasn't it? Because Napoleon happened, and then Thomas Carlyle came along and he talked about the great man theory of history. And then Nietzsche was just kind of following in that vein, wasn't he? And then after that, you've got Evola, and then after that, you've got Bowden, and now you've got Bronze Age Pervert in that tradition. But anyway, nonetheless, I think bodybuilding is a natural direction in which to take that will to power idea. Evola took it into a mystical dimension, I suppose, with magic and this and that. But the Pervert is taking it in the direction of perfecting the physique, almost like a yogi, taking the physique to a spiritual level. You know, my body is my temple. It seems like a natural direction for the philosophy to take, and it's also something we've seen in Germany before, or in Europe before, with the Nature Boy movement, which was part of the Volkisch movement, or you had the Volkisch movement in Germany. When it left Germany and it came to America, it was known as the Nature Boy movement. Most people don't realize a lot of the hippie movement just came from racist, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Germans. Sunbathing. Bronze Age Pervert advocates for sunbathing. The Germans invented sunbathing. Look it up. I don't think I'm wrong about this. I hope I'm not. But this was a German idea, which is then picked up by the Californians. It's gone out of fashion over the last few years because of fear of skin cancer. I'm dubious about this, actually, the whole skin cancer thing. I'm a little bit... Is that really a thing? Have you ever heard of anybody getting skin cancer? Did they just want to sell us this cream full of chemicals to smear on our bodies? Is sunbathing really a bad... Do they want to stop us from worshipping the sun? Right? Is it a giant conspiracy to kill the Volkisch movement? But I remember in the 90s, like, sunbathing was a serious thing. And it's kind of like... I don't know. I mean, it's strange. You don't hear of people saying that they're going to go sunbathing anymore. You do hear of people saying they're going to go and sit on the beach. but they don't say, there's no like deliberate like, oh, I'm going to sunbathe, as in I'm going to lie in the sun and feel the energy of the sun and feel myself going brown and then turn over and then feel it on my back or whatever. It seems like the term sunbathing has gone out of fashion. Anyway, he advocates for this in this book, and he's right to do so, and it is a Volkish thing. So I think the combination of Evolian philosophy with populism is brilliant, and I think the combination of Evolian philosophy with bodybuilding and health and fitness is a brilliant and perfect combination. And I think taking all this and pushing it back into the Hellenistic age and into the Greeks is also brilliant and perfect, and I think it's a really good book. I think this is what men want. He says it's not a self-help book, but he's managed to... it is a self-help book on some level. He's managed to combine the two, self-help and politics, which is what must be done. One of my major criticisms of Peterson and that whole thing, 12 rules for life and blah blah blah. One of my biggest criticisms of the entire self-help movement is that essentially they're saying don't improve yourself. Sorry, don't get involved in politics, you peasant, you goyim. Don't get involved in politics. Just do self-improvement, okay? That's the real solution to your problem, right? Just work harder, essentially. And what I mean by that is, let's give the analogy. There's a prison. You're in the prison. It's comfy. It's nice. And then the prison guards, they open up the prison and they fill it full of a whole bunch of nasty prisoners. And you got to live with them. Now the prison's overcrowded and people are getting stabbed and it's rubbish. And you complain to the prison guard and you say, hey, why is the prison so overcrowded? We want better conditions in the prison. And the prison guard says, look, don't complain to us. Just work harder. Just do self-improvement. Here's a book written by Jordan Peterson. 12 rules of how to survive in a prison and how to make your life better. Just follow that. Why are you complaining to us about it, you peasants? So this is the thing. If you're telling people to get involved in self-improvement, but you're at the same time you're telling people not to get involved in politics, or you're just omitting that altogether, not mentioning it, then essentially you're just saying to them, work harder. Okay, we're going to fill your country with foreigners and we're going to create giant corporate monopolies, right? But don't complain about it. Just work harder so you can become a millionaire, so that you can escape the dystopia that we've created. All right, that is the message of the self-help movement. Self-help itself comes from a book which was written, George Smiley, something like this, late Victorian period. Guy wrote a book. Actually, it was a huge influence in Japan, apparently. Helped them like rebuild their country. But that was like the origin of the self-help movement. The book itself was called Self-Help. It was controversial at the time because this guy wrote this book. He wanted to help the working classes of England. And instead of giving them political solutions, he said, well, just, don't get involved with politics, just save your money. At that period in time in England, people were considered to be poor because they were lazy. Perhaps there was some truth in it, but at the same time, the aristocracy did have a huge monopoly over things. So there was some controversy with the very first self-help book, and I think that a lot of people seem to have forgotten the controversy now, I suppose. So many bright-eyed self-help gurus on the internet. How to become a man, and do this, and do that, and improve your brain. It's like, okay, all of this may be true. It's not that you're wrong about any of this. It's just that you're telling me to do all this stuff, but you're not giving any political solutions to the problems that we face. And so essentially you're just telling me work harder, Goyim. Because my father never had to do this stuff. My father never needed to go to the gym. He never needed to be a bodybuilder. He never needed to work very hard. He just, back then, you could just go and get a job, and then you'd get paid. And then if you didn't fool around too much, you'd be able to afford to buy a house, and you could get a wife, and you could have kids. You wouldn't be especially rich, but you'd be doing okay. You could go on holiday once a year, you know. It was okay. Life was okay. You didn't have to self-improve. You didn't have to get a special qualification. You just needed to apply for a job, and they'd train you on the job to do whatever job it was. Things were good. Nowadays, things are not good. You have to get a special qualification so you can get a special job, so you can drag yourself up out of minimum wage poverty. Imagine that there was a time in this country when you could be a barman, you could be a milkman, you could be a postman, and you could buy a house, right? You could do minimum wage jobs, and you could buy a house and have a family and support them with those minimum wage jobs. Nowadays, we live in a world where it's like, oh, that's a shitty job, right? The attitude being that shitty minimum wage jobs should be done by foreigners, right? The slave class that we've imported. And what you need to do as a white man is work really hard and do self-improvement to raise yourself up out of that working class, slave class, into the white middle class. That is the unspoken worldview of the elites. We even saw this on a Question Time at one point, didn't we? I remember it's quite famous on the internet, but they were talking about immigration on Question Time. Some lady in the audience pipes up. She says, well, if we get rid of the immigrants, who's going to give me my coffee in the morning, right? Completely unaware of what she's saying. But what she was saying is essentially, well, we need the slaves. So unless you're tackling the slave problem, the problem of mass immigration, if you're just telling people to do self-help, then you're just telling them to work harder, right? Bronze Age Pervert is not like this. Bronze Age Pervert says, yes, do self-help, become a bodybuilder, and improve yourself, be a man, but at the same time get involved in politics. But also get involved in politics in a rational way, not in a spurgy way, not in a crazy Heil Hitler ethno-nationalist way. No. Practice entryism. Enter into the MAGA movement. Join Reform here in England. This has been the great debate we've been having over the last few weeks. All these doomers, this disgusting academic agent, and this Morgoth, and all these idiots. Oh, Nigel Farage, boo-hoo, I don't like him because he destroyed the BNP 200 years ago. Oh, I'm not going to support him. No, you guys are such a bunch of losers. You are such a bunch of miserable, depressed losers. You do not know how to win. I don't know what Bronze Age Pervert has said about Nigel Farage and Reform, but I'm assuming he would rally behind it. Because it's winning, and it's changing things, and it's good, and he understands that you can have your high ideals, and at the same time engage in populist movements to better the society that you live in. So it's beautiful. It's a great book. He's saying so many of the things that I myself have been saying for such a long time. And I'm quite deeply inspired by it, actually. I really am. It's like real relief. I should have gotten into this years ago. So, but I don't agree with everything that he says. He doesn't seem to be in favor of marriage. He thinks that marriage will drag a man down. I mean, I guess that's true in some cases. I've seen lots of guys. We've all seen guys. They won't come out for a drink because their wives won't let them. I work with a guy like this, you know. We're quite friendly. I say, let's go out for a pint. His wife won't let him come out. It's like, how do you get into this situation where you're not allowed to go to the pub? Like, how does that work? I really don't understand it. So there is some truth in this, but I think overall we have to... He says that marriage is not an act of rebellion. I think it is. And I think if you look at demographics over time, religious people win in the long term, and the atheists die out because the atheists don't have children. So I think the real solution to our problems is some kind of white, ethnic, pagan religion in which the people have lots of babies. And I think he's also missing the point that for a woman, you have to give the women something noble to do as well. This book is a very male book. What about the ladies? What is the noble thing for a lady to do? Well, having 5, 6, 7 kids is the noble thing for a lady to do. That's a life of hard work, and changing nappies and raising the children and giving them your love, and this is a good thing for women to do. So he misses that completely. He also doesn't believe in God, but he doesn't seem to be totally against the idea. He's just wishy-washy on it. He does believe in reincarnation, so he believes in the soul. There is a spiritual dimension to this book. I actually think it's probably the best angle to take. Reincarnation first, belief in God second. I've been thinking about this recently, because if you read the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks first. The very first thing he says to Arjuna is, you are not the body. You are a soul. You cannot die. So don't worry. You can go and kill your uncles and your cousins. It doesn't matter. You're just killing their bodies. You're not killing their soul. You'll be fine. That's the very first thing he says. And then later on in the book, he talks about God and service to God and so on and so forth. And I'm beginning to think it would probably be better for me personally to talk about reincarnation more and about God less. Because people, they got daddy issues. They don't want to believe in God. They got daddy issues, it upsets them for whatever reason. And they associate it with Christianity and this and that. But you tell people that they're going to live forever and they like it. You tell people there's a God and they get worried because then they think, I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And, there are rules and I have to follow them. And what do you mean I have to serve God? Ugh, that's so servile. I don't want to serve. They don't like it. People reject it. But you tell them that they've got a soul and only the body dies and the soul lives forever. They're like, oh, that's cool. Great. Nice. So it's easier for people to accept because it doesn't bash against their ego so much. It's certainly eager for pagans to accept. So I think I'm probably going to take more of an angle on that in that way as I move forward. And we've reached the hour mark. I mean, there's a lot I could say about this book. A lot I could say. But we've reached the hour mark. I don't want to go on for too long. But in essence, great book. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And yeah, dude, that's it. That's all I got to say. Thank you very much for listening. Like and subscribe. Share the video. My videos only get shared by word of mouth because I'm shadow banned by everybody. So just spam all your friends with this brilliant video. All right, God bless. Thanks for listening.